All right, I'll go ahead and get started. I just want to welcome everybody to this year's 2022 Women in Fire panel. This is for the intention of getting people that look like them in positions that people in this Corps would like to be in someday. And so we have the Women's Fuels and Fire crews from Montana Conservation Corps' Greater Yellowstone region out of Bozeman, Montana here listening in today. And we have some alumni from the public, and then a great panel of women here today to answer some questions about what it's like to be in this field and some tips and tricks. The Women's Fuels and Fire crew leaders this year have compiled some questions, so I'll go ahead and share my screen so we can all see those to start. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, copy that.
Get that. Give me one. There we go. Perfect. Can everybody see that okay? Can I just get like a thumbs up?
Not yet.
I don't see anything, Caitlin.
Let me try. One moment. How about now?
Not yet.
Let me exit out and try again.
Oh, there you go.
Now we see it.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for joining. So the first couple questions are just about your experience. So what was your first role like? How was your view of firefighting changed or expanded since entering this field? What tips would you give to a non-male, so woman, non-binary, trans, etc. person starting out in fire? What is your favorite part of the job? What is your eventual goal, and how do you see yourself advancing in firefighting? Have you ever led men in this role, and do you find your gender to be a challenge? Do you feel like being a woman has ever kept you from getting a job promotion? What's one thing you do to take care of yourself while out on roll? What motivates you to return each season? What are the best fire or saw boots you've found so far? If you have other jobs outside of fire. And so, let me quit sharing my screen there. And I'm just gonna start with having each of the women on the panel introduce themselves. So why don't we go ahead and get started with Meg O'Brien.
Oh, I gotta figure out how to unmute myself. Can you guys hear me?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, really? Okay, sweet. Hello, I'm Meg O'Brien. You just want us to do like our title and where we're at and whatnot?
Yeah, that'd be great. If you could share your title, what agency or company you work for, and yeah, your current role.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, so I'm Meg O'Brien. Currently, I work for the Idaho Department of Lands, which is a state of Idaho agency, and I work for the Coeur d'Alene Hell Attack crew.
Awesome, thank you, Meg. Next, we're gonna have Elle Hollingsworth.
Hi, everyone. My name's Elle. I'm currently a field coordinator out of the Northern Rockies region with MCC. I did trails and wildland fire for 3 seasons with the Seward Ranger District out of Alaska. I rolled with a Type 2 IA crew. So I'm no longer in fire, but just recently left that.
Thank you, Elle. Next, we're gonna go to Lauren. I know she's actively on a prescribed burn, so I wanna go to her real quick.
Hi, I'm Lauren. I'm at Superior Ranger District in Montana. We're technically a hand crew, but we also send engines out. We're kind of a very versatile crew or district, and we do a lot of emphasis on burning, hence right now, and just had like a bunch of spots where we got them under control just in time. Oh, it's my second year too.
Thanks, Lauren. I appreciate it. Next, I'm going to hand it off to Angie.
Hi, everybody. I'm happy to meet all of you. My name's Angie Mattis, and I'm an engine foreman on the Yellowstone Ranger District out of Livingston, Montana. I started on the Lolo, so I've been on those burns in Superior and the 9 Mile and all that too. So, did you want anything else? I'm sorry.
Nope, just where you're currently at. Yeah, your current title and and how long you've been doing it.
Okay.
So thank you. Next.
How long I've been doing it? 21 years.
Awesome. Thanks, Angie. And finally, we're going to go to Sam Bates.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sam Bates. I currently work for the Nature Conservancy, the Arkansas division, and I'm their controlled burn crew lead. So a little bit different, not fighting active wildfires, but getting to light them down here in Arkansas. And this is my second season.
Awesome. Thank you, Sam, for joining us. Thank you to our whole panel for being here today. I really appreciate you taking your time. So why don't we go ahead and get started with that first question. So what was your first role like? And we can just popcorn this, whoever wants to share first.
My first role was really a long time ago. But what I do remember were the people that took their time to show me what they knew in a digestible manner and in a kind way. Like I didn't even know how to wear my radio bra. And there was a woman that said, "Hey, I think you might be a little more comfortable if you just wore it like this instead of, hey, that's on wrong." You know, it was just presented in a pretty great manner, helpful manner. Yeah.
Thanks, Angie.
I guess I'll go. My first role was an engine role. We went down to New Mexico and we're kind of there on the Zuni reservation giving a hand because they had been in drought status for like the past several years. So lots of red flag warnings. We patrolled the area pretty much every day for 2 weeks. The only activity we saw was one juniper tree that caught fire. And it was so hard to find that we had to have a helicopter hover over the spot. And basically it wasn't going to go anywhere anyway. So that was just like our first experience. But yeah, outside of the engine roles, I've done some hand crew roles and those were more enjoyable.
Well, I can go. Yeah, so I guess I've never been on a roll, but my first prescribed burn was pretty exciting, a little bit nerve-wracking, so a little bit different for me.
I guess I can go. So I started out, I did a bit of prescribed burning over in Western New York years before I got on with MCC, but my first actual role was in 2020 when I was on the Women's Fire Crew. And we went down to Colorado to the Pine Gulch Fire, which at the time was the largest fire that Colorado had seen. I honestly don't remember a lot from it because it was kind of crazy and just a whirlwind of emotions and chaos, like being on your first roll with a 20-person hand crew. But overall, it was good. I had some weird experiences dealing with the public and civilians, which was kind of a rude awakening. I thought that, I don't know, on my first roll, my issues might be with the men in fire, but it actually happened to be with the men in the public that were kind of surrounding the fire. So that was a little bit of a rude awakening. But we did 16 days down in Colorado, and it was really great. Kind of learned what it means to hurry up and wait a lot. And that's just something that you kind of deal with in fire. But yeah, so that was my first role.
So my first role was actually a fire on my own district. The fire blew up, and maybe 9 hours before we were told what was going to happen. So I went with a small mod. It was only a 5-day role. We flew out on a helicopter to a historic cabin and dropped some pretty big cottonwoods and wrapped the structure in foil and had HPay and 16s and Perdium. It was pretty sweet. I just kept being told that not all fire roles are that cool. So I did learn that not all fire roles are that cool, but that was my first experience. It was pretty sweet.
Awesome. Thank you, folks. We'll move on to the next question we have, which is, how has your view of firefighting changed or expanded since entering this field? Or what is the biggest misconception you held before becoming a firefighter, and what has surprised you? And yeah, again, just feel free to go in any order as it comes to you.
I'd say my biggest, oh, did I walk on somebody? My biggest misconception was that firefighting was what we do when we are on the fire line, and that was what mud would consist of. It is an all-encompassing world of managing people and personalities, and that human side is way more of a piece of it than I ever expected. And now that I'm in a management role, more of an overhead position, that's magnified even more so. That's probably my number one misconception. My other surprise, well, what surprises me is that people don't understand that just because you work with a good crew and you're accepted and supported, that it doesn't still exist in the Forest Service, the sexism. That still surprises me. Maybe I'm a little naive still, but.
Thank you, Angie, for sharing that.
Okay, I can go. My view of fire has changed from the beginning. At first, it was pretty nerve-wracking to go and light woods that weren't on fire. And now, having 2 seasons behind my belt and understanding fire behavior a little bit more, you still have that healthy amount of fear, but it's a lot more fun now. Understanding fire behavior and getting it to do what you want it to do. So that's a big thing that's changed for me. And then in my field, I have a crew with 3 women and one guy. So it's nice to have a crew of women and feel included. The Nature Conservancy really tries to do that and really diversify. So that's exciting for me.
I can go. So I guess what surprised me is the little PPE that is given to us as far as the amount of smoke that you eat, This whole time that we were dealing with the spots, you're just like inhaling and choking on smoke. It's pretty much thought of kind of like weakness to have any PPE, any protection. I looked it up on Reddit too last year, just trying to see if they wore goggles or something. And thanks. And they said, oh, you just suck it up and put on a pair of Smith sunglasses. And it's like, oh, okay. I'm surprised at how different each district can be. So some districts are really heavy on prescribed burns like us. Some cannot do prescribed burns because maybe they're within city limits. Some places are stricter, some places are more lax, some places give you more opportunities for qualifications. And these are all like important questions to ask when you're going through the interview process within the Forest Service, because you're pretty much interviewing the district. Like they may be interviewing you, but you're also saying like where you'll get like the best opportunities and training and the most qualifications that you can acquire. I wish they had like a rate your district kind of thing, like they do in college. And then I haven't experienced anything bad or like profound as far as like sexism or anything, I'd say. And we talk about it at MCC. I'd say if anything, there's a lot of unconscious bias. And I guess I really like to challenge those biases. So that's why I kind of like the job. And it can be quite intimidating at a certain point, but there are a lot of people that are really supportive of us and each other. There's only just like few bad apples that I've experienced. So maybe I'm just like lucky to have not been in the position to experience it. I wouldn't say lucky. But I'd say it's so far I've had a really great experience with fire and gained like a good family and friendships out of it. That is all.
Thanks, Lauren.
I will piggyback on Lauren's comment about PPE and just safety in general. I think something that surprised me is ego and ego getting in the way of making like the safest choice, trying to like one up a different crew that's also working on the same fire. That totally surprised me. I don't know if my view has really changed. I will say I've learned more about jobs within the fire world that I didn't really think were possible. You know, you don't have to be the one hiking in with a backpack. You can do lots of other jobs within fire, and that's nice to know.
Yeah, I'll kind of piggyback off of that and say, like after my season with MCC and being on a hand crew, I just remember seeing all the aviation side of it on my first role and just being in total awe of that part of fire. And so I knew immediately that I wanted to be kind of working more the aviation side of things. So this is my second season working on the heli-attack crew. And it's really amazing being a part of that different type of firefighting, the versatility in missions that you get rather than just being on the ground and humping a chainsaw around all day. Granted, we do still hump chainsaws all day, but I also get to do a variety of different kinds of missions that keep the job really versatile and interesting and keeps you on your toes. And you know, you don't have to be on the ground, you know, fighting fire at all. There are dispatch jobs. There's so many different things that you can do in the fire world. That's really interesting. And shoot, I kind of lost my train of thought. I forgot where I was going with that. One thing that's kind of changed for me, coming from an MCC crew and then getting on, you know, for my first full season with a real crew, I had a lot of kind of like this imposter syndrome that my experience with chainsaw and doing trails for many years before, that none of that was going to translate into fire, or that somehow my experience was invalid or discredited. And that really wasn't the case, which was a really eye-opening thing for me, to join this crew and be in such a supportive environment and learn that my experiences were valid and that I actually did have something to bring to the table, especially being a woman. Like, you're already so intimidated and on your toes all the time. And so in my experience so far, I've been a part of a really supportive and amazing crew, and that's been really awesome.
Awesome. That's great to hear. Thank you all for sharing. The next question we have is, what tips would you give to a non-male person starting out in fire?
I would, I'll pitch in and basically just echo what was just said. Is your experiences that you've had before and your skills translate, and you're valid on your crew, and hopefully you're lucky enough, like me as well, to be in a crew that really brings you up and supports you. So yeah.
I wrote several things down that I wanted to bring up for this question. Show up in shape for the job that you were hired for, whether it's non-field going or field going, but show up in shape. You're only doing yourself a favor, and you're only going to be able to perform at the level of competency that you need to be performing at. Second is educate yourself about the choices that you have and paths that you have in front of you. Find out all you can so you can make the right decisions, and then advocate for yourself. That's especially important if you have a supervisor that isn't as motivated as some. And I think we've all run into those across all lines of work. Some people are really motivated to help you get where you're going, whether it's within the agency or without. So advocate for yourself, whether that means telling your supervisor that you're interested in fuels and not fire, or aviation, or GIS, or planning, or something like that. So educate yourself on what the opportunities are. And then the other big one that came to mind when I saw this question was maintain those relationships that are important to you and that benefit you, professionally and personally. Maintain those relationships. They will serve you throughout your career, but personally, they're even more important. So.
Thank you, Angie.
I definitely agree with the show up for your job, like show up in shape for the job that you want. This winter, I put a lot more priority into physical training, and that's definitely paid off, and it just makes me feel more confident in the field. I'd say always try to jump on opportunities if people are needing like a sawyer or somebody for like digging line or something. Always jump on it. It gives like a really good first impression. And I guess just be a little prepared for it to be kind of difficult to maintain life outside of work, as you pretty much sell your soul to fire during the summer, and it's like hopefully you have like a good support system that understands that, and will still be there for you for like like be right there for you when you get back into the world, and support you through any, like, I don't know, emotional helpings that you need. Because yeah, this job can be pretty draining. But if you have like a really good crew that your family, then it kind of makes up for it. That's all I can think about.
Awesome. Thanks, Lauren.
Sorry, Caitlin. Are we doing what tip you would give to a non-male person starting out in fire? So
Yes.
sorry, I missed
Yeah.
the first part. If I had to give a tip to someone, to a non-male starting out in fire, I would say use your voice. If you see something and it is not cool, shut it down. No one else is going to advocate for yourself more than you. And if something inappropriate is said, you need to put a stop to it immediately. And yeah, if you don't shut it down from the beginning, it's going to continue. And if you set that example within your crew, then when you go on rolls and you have weird experiences with other crews, your own home crew is going to have your back at that point. So I would say just set it straight from the beginning and shut something down if it's inappropriate.
Awesome. Thanks, Elle. The next question I have is, what is your favorite part of the job?
Being out in the woods every day. Sometimes when we're stuck at the district or we have to do office days for training and stuff, we're all just wishing to be out in the woods. The best part is always like proving to yourself what you can do and like surprising yourself in certain, and I just like the random bits of action. Like you kind of never really know what's going to happen. People will project, like for the burn today, they're like, the timber above me, they said that it wouldn't spot or catch fire just because of what the relative humidity was and the projected weather and such. Like it wouldn't really spread, but it still surprised us, and we had some action. We thought we were just going to hold line all day. So it's always like you're always sitting at the edge of your seats in these kind of bits.
Yeah, I'll kind of piggyback off Lauren there. Hi, Lauren. Fire is a very dynamic environment and things are always changing, which I love. It keeps you on your toes, and it just makes the job really exciting. The other thing I would say is the family that you create and the connections that you make and the people that you meet. Fire people are some of the coolest, most down-to-earth people besides MCC people that I've ever met in my life, and I've made some really awesome lifetime friends and connections on my crew. And then thirdly, it's definitely, the views. Like we work for the views, and just getting to like wake up, being in aviation, sometimes you're dropped off in the middle of nowhere in a mountain range, and that's where you get to spike out, and that's where you sleep and wake up in the morning to the most beautiful sunrise at 4:30 in the morning. And those special little moments definitely make the grind and the long hours and being dirty for 16 to 36 days all worth it. So yeah.
Hi, Meg.
Yeah, my favorite part is also the views, the environments we get to go into. My crew travels throughout the whole state of Arkansas. So we get to see a lot of different things. Our stuff promotes a lot of wildlife. So we're doing a lot of things to help native creatures here. Native birds, red cockaded woodpeckers is one of our main things that we're trying to help here. So every day we get to go out, we see turkeys, deer, morel mushrooms, you know, so every day is a new adventure and it's fun to see new things each time.
I think same vein as everyone else. You can't pick one thing that's your favorite. I'd say the diversity of things that I get to do day by day, year by year. I'm on a type 2 team. I get to go to big fires. I spike out on the small fires. I've rappelled. I'm still in aviation. I'm a manager. The people. I love the people, and I love to get to see some of the most beautiful places in this country and work there and make a living outside in that. But I really enjoy the challenges. I really enjoy being challenged, and it empowers me to take each challenge and succeed or learn from a defeat. That's very, very empowering to me. But I really, at this point, because I am hiring people and I get to create a culture for our crew, along with some wonderful individuals. We've created a really good culture of encouraging each other, empowerment, working on your weaknesses and sharing your strengths, being able to influence people and future firefighters. That's
I played a college sport. I played college soccer, and going on a fire roll is very equivalent to like the day of a game. Getting like super amped and like just you're excited with your team and you're gonna get sweaty and you're gonna get dirty, and it's just like a cool team thing to do, and you know, to embrace the suck.
Awesome. Thank you, folks, for sharing. The next question I have is, what is your eventual goal and how do you see yourself advancing in firefighting?
I'm going to sit out of this one because I'm no longer in firefighting.
I've yet to figure it out. This is my second season. They're trying to make a bigger move on using drones in fire, so that's kind of my projected a possible outlook within fire. But there's also so many different branches. I mean, if I want to still be part of the drama that it creates, then dispatch is always an option. But I guess it kind of depends on if the infrastructure bill passes and we start getting higher raises and better benefits, then a lot of our minds would change for staying in the long run. So fingers crossed.
I'll go next. For me, this question is almost like a daily thing, and it changes pretty much every day. Also, I have a lot less options in the fire world because I am a Canadian citizen. So I actually didn't learn this until I was like on USA Jobs applying for all these Fed positions with the Forest Service and the BLM, that I can't work for any federal agencies being a Canadian citizen. So I kind of had to buckle down and do some research about state crews and kind of alternative ways. I looked at Nature Conservancy. So right now I work for the state, and they're okay with my citizenship thing. But moving forward, I've definitely, so right now I'm just a senior crew member on my Helitack crew. I was hoping to this year start my task book for my helicopter manager. And then I've also kind of been tossing around the idea of going to pilot school and flying for fire. So that's kind of some directions that I'm looking in.
First, I have to unmute myself. For me, I have 2.5 years until I retire. It actually does happen. If you work long enough, you get there. But I still have choices. I still have 2.5 years of choices to make. I detailed into the AFMO of operations 3 times now, and I realized that that is not my choice, that I'm happier field going. It was a really great, challenging detail for me, all 3 of them in 3 different parts of the year. But I just want to stress, no matter what choice you make, you can always change your mind. There's always choices after that big choice that you make. There's so many options within the federal agencies or outside of it. But once I get to retirement, I think I'll just have to wait and see if I AD with my team or not, because there's choices after retirement too.
Okay. My goal always with my work is to enjoy it and to feel like I'm making a difference. So right now I still feel that way, so that's good. And then advancing in fire, I really haven't thought too far about it. I'm pretty comfortable with the position I have right now. So I can't really picture myself as a burn boss, but that could be an eventual position, you know, leading the burns here in Arkansas, or maybe eventually trying a wildfire crew. I've always just been scared of that because it seems like a really macho, kind of scary thing. So I've maybe I'll dip my toes in that one day.
Thank you, everybody. My next question is, have you ever led men in this role? And did you find your gender to be a challenge?
I'll go. Yes, I do every day. In all of my qualifications, obviously 20 plus years in fire, it's going to happen. From being a senior on an engine to instructing SAW class to being a division or operations sections chief on a type 3 fire. It happens. And that's a very tricky, not tricky, but a difficult question to say, has your gender ever been a challenge? Because it's yes and no. I feel like teaching a male to start a chainsaw for the very first time, it just depends on the person who's receiving the information from you. I personally have seen it be a hindrance and an advantage. My first job, the FMO on the district, was a female. And she always said, I'm not pro-female, I'm pro-good, hardworking firefighter. I try to keep that with me at all times. Yes, I have 2 engine crews right now. And on my crew, on my traditional crew, we have 4 females and 2 males. Of the 4 on our zone, everyone is proactive in hiring females in different years when we have the choices. So that's a hard one to answer.
Anyone else want to answer that one? Otherwise, I'll move on to the next one. Thank you for sharing.
I'll go real fast. And then I think I have to boot it off. So I'd say it's kind of, there are definitely annoying points. You get outspoken a bit more. Maybe choose men instead of you. They may, I wouldn't necessarily say like some people are bad with mansplaining, but I'd say maybe over-explain. And I just take it as like maybe because they don't know what I know, like they'd rather over-explain than, you know, me not know. But I mean, there's definitely subtleties, and it's definitely a lot better having more females with you. It's nice having some feminine energy with a lot of testosterone, and just, yeah, it's just depending on like how you take things, if you can like throw it back or like joke about it or give people shit. It can weigh you down, or you can kind of move on from it and prove them wrong. So that's basically it, but just want to say thanks for having me and hope you guys have a great, safe season. Bye.
Hi, thank you, Lauren. Thanks for joining us. Awesome. I have a
Sam, do you want to share, and then I'll go next?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we've got one guy on our crew, and he's super easy to lead. It's just it just comes down to personality and work ethic, really. So our group is great. We've got 2 male burn bosses, and they are super excellent at letting us step up to lead lines on prescribed burns, and not, you know, giving us suggestions when they need to, or just letting me lead them and tell them how to light the line, even though they've been doing it for 20 years. So days like that, it's definitely not a challenge at all. I feel super validated and super great. And then there's other days where we have a shop day and I have to go get equipment fixed, and the gentleman in the equipment place are giving me a hard time about checking oil, and you know, so there's challenges, and then there's really good moments too, where your team really builds you up. So that's life.
Yeah, I would say I've definitely had more rewarding moments than bad experiences with leading men. I was the only female on my crew last season, and everyone was very supportive, especially all my overhead, in giving me ample opportunities and chances to learn and work on my qualifications. I got to IC my first couple of fires last season, and working in Helitech is a little different. So if we get sent out on the helicopter, it's only a small upload. So I'm only leading like 4 or 5 of my crew members, but everyone is always very respectful and supportive when putting me in those situations, and very helpful. And I always know that my overhead is going to put me in those situations, and you know, they're going to be difficult and maybe a little scary, but I know that they're never going to let me drown in those situations, and that they're always there to support me and help me in any way I need. So it's been good so far.
I would say on my last role with the Forest Service, I was a lead sawyer on my 20-man hand crew, and I didn't have any issues with my gender on my crew, but it was when you meet another crew on the line that has something to say. And I think I kind of mentioned it before, if you have a good crew behind your back and good overhead, then they're going to have your back on that, and support you and defend you. Yeah, I would say it's outside of my community is where you find a lot of like inappropriate comments and like backlash from men. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your experiences. The next question I have is on a similar vein. Do you ever feel like being a woman has ever kept you from a job or getting a promotion?
I don't think that being a woman has ever stopped me from getting a job. I do think that I've had to work much harder than other people to get to where I'm at.
On my thing, it's a little bit different. I think that I got hired because I'm a woman and it looks good on paper. But that's my first impression, and I still kind of have that idea in the back of my head. As I get more qualifications and more confidence, you know, I know I'm fit for the role. So it's hard to quiet that voice that says, why didn't they hire the male counterpart that maybe has a little more experience over me? So for me, it's kind of almost the opposite. I got the job, I think, because I was a woman.
I also don't think that I've ever missed out on a job because I'm a female. The only thing that's ever held me back is me, my attitude or something like that. Work in progress, constantly.
Meg, do you have anything to add? Otherwise, I'll move on to the next question.
I mean, I've only been working this for the same crew for 2 years. So no, it's being a woman has never held me back from getting a job. I think I don't really like to think of it like that. I like to think that if I'm qualified for the position, then yeah, my qualifications and my experience will speak for themselves. I do remember in my interview with Coeur d'Alene Hell Attack, I remember specifically asking like how many women they had on the crew or how many women had been on the crew in the past, and just kind of asking what that crew culture was gonna be like and what kind of environment that they like to foster. And they're all very, you know, respectful, supportive men, all in the overhead with tons of years of fire experience. And they just made it very clear and known that they actually enjoy bringing that kind of different and feminine energy to the crew. It definitely changes the dynamic a lot. And so no, yeah, being a woman has never stopped me from getting a job so far. So.
Awesome. Thank you, folks. So the next one is, what's one thing you do to take care of yourself while out on a fire?
For me, I don't really mind getting dirty or being dirty for an extended amount of time if there's no showers available. So that one's fun for me, but I've just scribbled down a couple of things. Invest in good socks. Just please do that. Invest in good socks. Natural wipes, like just keeping the lady bits happy. Of course, you know, ensuring that you can get the best sleep possible in the environment. And then I do have to tag on that for years and years, you know, I'm never gonna blend in with an all male crew. You know, for a long time I worked with only men. There's really no way to just be one of the guys, you know. So I have fully embraced wearing earrings and painting my fingernails. Fully embraced it. So that's definitely something that really takes care of me.
I'll kind of tag along off that. I love the earring thing because I'm a big jewelry wearer, and I always felt weird about it being on a fire, but it's just like the little things and the little ways you can express yourself, as long as it doesn't interfere with work, obviously. But I'm a big proponent of that. The cleanliness thing, yes, we get dirty. We're out in the woods for 16 days at a time, but it's the little things like having a fresh pair of underwear to put on every day and socks. So those are two big things for me. Sleep is another. I'd never done this before in all the years I spent in the woods, but I bought myself like a camp pillow last year, just like a tiny little one that packs down really small, so I don't have to sleep on a dry bag full of clothes. That's been a game changer. A really good sleeping pad. And then another thing that really motivates me is food. And for some people it's different. Like if you're on a 20-man hand crew and you're getting those fire camp lunches and you're eating like granola bars that have 26 grams of sugar in them, that really bogs me down and makes me super foggy. Helitack is a little bit different. I actually buy my own food for every day unless we are attached to a large incident. So I have a small jar of peanut butter that I carry around in my fire pack. And I eat lots of fresh fruit when I'm out there. Like I'll shove apples in my pack, and just make sure that I'm eating really good, clean food, because that makes my body feel better, and then I work better. And yeah, so those are my things.
Mine is, I'm going to piggyback off of Meg. Mine's pretty much the same thing. I got the company credit card, so I buy all the really good, healthy food for when we're out prepping line or doing prescribed burns. So it's really good to fuel your body with really good food. And it gets really hot in Arkansas. Our burn season's in the summer, so I always tuck extra hydration packs in my chest harness.
I would agree with the apple. I always keep an apple, or I would always keep an apple in my Fireline gear. It is so nice to like cut open a crunchy apple while you're sitting in really hot weather. I also bring a wide tooth comb because your hair becomes a rat's nest. And that was something that I would do, like, to just decompress every evening, is like take out all those knots. I ended up cutting my hair like to my ears because I was so annoying. And I also wore earrings like every single day. Yeah, there's little things that make you feel really comfortable, and don't shy away from those things. Like, do whatever you need to do to feel comfortable while you're out there.
Awesome, thanks. And
Can
kinda wanna add
can I
one
add
thing.
a couple more things? Sorry, you guys, this is just such a good conversation. A couple of things came up in my mind. I'm gonna just write on with Meg, the little blow up pillows. I got them as safety awards for our entire crew 2 years ago because it was a game changer for me. Like your neck, you wake up and your neck's all cricked up and it's terrible. And then I'd also have to say, not ingesting alcohol as you normally would if you weren't on a fire roll. And I know that it's really fun to go out with your crew, and I did it when I was younger, and some people can bounce back from that. But for me at my age, I've noticed that there's a huge effect in my mental clarity and my attitude. It affects everything. So I used to be able to do it, but can't do it anymore. It just affects me too much.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to add a couple more things too. What was the question, Caitlin? How do you take care of yourself on the line or whatever? Is that what it was?
Yeah, what's something you do to take care of yourself while out on a fire?
Okay. So yeah, a couple things. We're all women. I don't know if there are any men in this thing. I don't know if this is going to be TMI, but like we're all women. Well, maybe we're not all identifying as women, but most of us get periods. And so like be prepared for that when you're out on the line, because sometimes it just happens or you forget or you're not expecting it. Be prepared for that. You may not be in a situation where you can go to the store and run and get something. A big game changer for that for me has been a cup, which is a really, really easy, simple way to take care of that. So that was one thing. The other thing is take time for yourself when you can. If it's like, you know, the end of the day, everyone's bedding down at fire camp, like take 5 minutes and meditate, or bring a really good book, or wake up 10 extra minutes early in the morning and stretch. It's those like little quiet moments throughout the day that you can get that really, really help me. I think that was all I had to add. Yeah.
Thank you. I just wanted to introduce Shelby. She was the Women's Fuels and Fire crew leader with me out of Greater Yellowstone region, or a crew leader with me that season, I should say. Shelby, do you want to go ahead and tell us a little bit more about your fire experience?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Sorry for the late incoming. I got off work a little bit later. Yeah, so I did 4 seasons. My first season was with the state of Montana, the DNRC, on an engine. And then I did the Women's Fire Crew. And then I was on a Forest Service engine in Coeur d'Alene. And then I was on a Type 1 WFM crew in McCall, Idaho last season. Caitlin, is there anything else that you want me to?
No, thank you. The last question was, what's one thing you do to take care of yourself while out on a fire? So if you wanted to add anything to that one.
I mean, I always love, depending on what type of crew you're on, if you have the space, like having my own snacks that I know I like. Food's a major comfort thing for me. And if I can have snacks that I know have like good ingredients, which like fire camp stuff doesn't always have, that's always nice. And I always like to have like emergency too in my pack. Like sometimes even just getting like a boost of vitamins in your day can help like your energy levels and that sort of thing. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. So this next one is, what motivates you to return each season? What keeps you coming back for more fire? If you're out of fire now, you don't have to answer this one, or you can answer if you think you'll get back into fire someday.
I guess I'll kick this one off. I've definitely discovered that I'm like an adrenaline junkie. And I don't know how many people can resonate with that. There's just like something about fire in this job, the chaos all the time. Yeah, I just love that. The money is not so bad too sometimes, you know, like you work hard for 6 months and then I don't really work in the winter. So that's a major driver as well. And the people are awesome, and I love working with them. The past 2 seasons have been really amazing, and I've found like a crew and a family that I really, really jive with. And so far that's what's kept me coming back.
I think for me, it was like just the chance to go somewhere new and see new places and like get paid to do it. You know, the year I was in the Women's Fire Crew, we got to go to Alaska, and like I never would have done that if it weren't for fire. And even like last summer, I spent a bunch of time in the Frank Church and got to see really awesome places out there that, again, had it not been for fire, you know, I wouldn't have been out there and got to see all those places. So I think that's what kept me coming back.
I have to say that after this many years, I've put a lot of energy into building a program, and I'm invested in it personally, mentally and emotionally. It's a really good product. But it's because I work with really good people. So the people for sure, and it's not a boring job. I get paid to work out. I get paid to stay in shape, and I get paid to do really fun, challenging things. And I know I keep saying that word challenging in my answers, but that's a big thing for me. I thrive on challenge. I am most definitely not an adrenaline junkie. Absolutely not. But the challenge is where it's at for me, and it's very empowering. But the people, places, absolutely.
Yeah, I really enjoy this work. I enjoy each day is a new adventure. They're never the same. There's a lot of problem solving. Like yesterday, we were out plant monitoring, and today we were jute matting erosion scars, and tomorrow's gonna rain. So every day is a new day, which I really enjoy. I would hate to sit in front of a computer all day. Yeah, and I love my crew, and I love my bosses. They're really encouraging, and they're really helping start up and move up and fire. So it's a good environment, and it's a fun work environment.
The next question is a question I've gotten a lot. What are the best saw or fire boots you've found?
I feel like that can be a tough one depending on your feet. I spent most of my time in logger boots because that's like what everyone wears. But I also bought a pair of Scarpas my first season because I rolled my ankle in those logger boots a couple times with like a bunch of hoses on my back, and it doesn't feel great to do that. But the Scarpas to me are like super clunky, and I don't feel like I can navigate the ground really well in them. So this last season, I got a pair of Crispies that are like technically hunting boots, but they're Vibram sole and everything. And those things I love. I would keep buying those without a question. I feel like I've got running shoes on compared to the logger boots, but I think it's all based on, you know, what you like, what your feet like.
I did.
That's exactly. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
Your turn.
I have the Scarpa Fuegos, and I feel like I'm a mountain goat on a hillside sometimes. I hit one rock and you just like completely go over. That being said, I do have pretty weak ankles, so I get some good support. I tried calling whites for some like hybrid low heel boots, and they didn't make them in my size. But I think if I were to have done another roll, I would have snagged some Kinetrex.
I pretty much wrote down exactly what your first statement was. It depends on the foot. I have a really high arch. I've worn whites almost my entire career. I feel really stable in them. They hold my ankle tight, and I feel like I have a lot of stability. But I will absolutely stress that I'm not sure what it did for my lower back in general. So I would definitely see what works for you. The stability thing is big for me. I did try the more hiking boots. They were way too hot. I couldn't wear them at all. They became my hunting boots. And I did try last year. I got a pair of, I think they were Danners. But they were the fun boots that they just started coming out with the women's style, and they're uninsulated, and they've worked really well. But I still can't get that like laced down support for my ankles. So that's my story for my feet. I think depending on which woman you ask, it just is going to be.
Yeah, I have never worn the hiker type of boot. My first season, I had a pair of whites, but they were like the cheaper version of whites. They were called Hawthorne. Don't buy those. They're terrible. My feet suffered that whole first season. But I really liked the lager style. So last year I went with JK. And they have a store out here in Spokane, which is not too far away from Coeur d'Alene. So I actually went and I got custom fit for my boots, and they were amazing. They do have a little bit of serious break-in time, but once you get past that, it's one of the most comfortable, just feels like an extension of my foot. And I'm hoping that the heel doesn't have too much of a bad effect on my lower back after a couple of seasons of using them. But so far they've been awesome. I've also had other female friends say great things about the Kenetrex as well. But yeah, I think it all comes down to personal preference, which is kind of tough because you're spending like $300 to $400 on a pair of boots. So yeah, it's kind of personal preference, I think. Yeah.
Awesome. I know our crews will really appreciate those answers, and have them all written down so I can share them later too. So the final question that we have prepared is, do you have any other jobs outside of fire? So in the off season, during season. Yeah.
Okay, I can go. During off season, I do some side art hustles. So I do some paintings on the side, just some fun things that I can do in my own time, accept or refuse. And then my other job is just to go out and have fun and not think about fire for a little bit.
I had a pretty cool setup. So I was technically on a trail crew, and my ranger district is so small that trails becomes wildland fire like in July. So we're like doing trails, and then you get this like awesome break from trails, and you get to do like a 21-day roll, and then either maybe go on another roll or continue doing trails for the rest of the season. So that was pretty sweet. So I did kind of have like that second job. And then in the winter, I worked as a drink slinger in Whitefish, Montana. So yeah, pretty low key winter job.
I have been a lifty at a couple different ski resorts in like Tahoe and Utah. And then I was also a nanny one winter while I got my personal training certifications. Yeah, getting the unemployment and working under the table as a nanny was like a really good setup. Had lots of good free time.
This past winter, kind of like Shelbs, I worked at Bridger Bowl in Bozeman for the winter, which I didn't really love after working fire all season. Like, I was pretty burnt out, and I wish that I could have just taken the winter off, but finances weren't exactly where they needed to be, so I kind of had to suck it up and do that. But my year after MCC, and I detailed with a Type 2 IA crew. After my MCC season, I took that whole winter off, and I just adventured and kind of did whatever I wanted, it's a really nice way to decompress from the season. So yeah.
You guys are way more ambitious than me. When I was a seasonal, I did not work in the winter. I traveled, I slept whenever I wanted to, I drank as much as I wanted to, but traveling was my big thing, and being with my dog. So you guys are way more ambitious than I am. But a few years ago, they made me grow up, and I'm a permanent full-time PFT. So I work year round. I still get to travel, but my side hustle is pottery.
Awesome. I think that was all the questions that we had prepared. I think if you folks are okay with it, I'll open it up if people want to put any questions in the chat. And so I'll give everybody a couple minutes to see if we have any questions come in.
While they're typing, I did want to correct myself. The boots that I got that I liked that were more of a hiker style were Kenetrex, but they were the non-insulated. They came out with a female version, non-insulated, and they're high, and they're really nice.
Yeah, that is the one tough thing that I don't love about the Crispies is they are very hot, and the ones that I got are like the women's specific, so they're also waterproof. So I kind of gave myself a little bit of trench foot last season, and that was very painful, and I had to like switch out my boots. But hiking in the Crispies is fantastic. Just don't stand in a hot ash and you'll be great.
That also goes back to the how to take care of yourself on fires. You reminded me, always bring flip-flops or chacos to air your feet out as soon as you possibly can.
And monkey butt. I don't know if any of you guys have ever used that monkey butt powder, but pour that stuff all over your feet before you put your socks on. That was a game changer for me last season.
We've had a couple questions come in. The first one is, how did you all get into fire? So how did you get your first fire job?
I worked for ACE, the Conservation Corps down in Utah and Arizona. And we worked with a fire crew on a really cool project. And I was like, okay, I want to do that. And then I did all my intro classes online, even though I had to redo them. But yeah.
It was a little unconventional for me in the fall. The 9 Mile on the Lolo needed more people because they had students go back to school, and they brought me in like in the fall, and they asked me to come back the next year. So I had friends that were in fire, of course, in Missoula. But I will plug here. I do a lot of the hiring, and if someone is asking that question, I really like to give them some pointers. If they're looking how to get into fire, apply. Remember, you gotta, for the Forest Service, you have to apply the year before and start looking in August, September, and start making phone calls. So if you call my district and looking for a fire job or interest in fire, we put your name on a list. And if you come up on the 300 seasonals that are looking for a job the following year, we're going to go to your name first and look at your resume and your calls first because you showed interest. So always call the district that you think you want to work at.
I definitely got like thrown into fire with my trail crew. I didn't really know what I was getting into. My soup asked if I wanted to get my red card, and I said yes. And then my first role was a fire on our district, and they, like I said, they called the night before we were going to fly out at 6 a.m. and they were like, do you want to do this? You need to tell us in the next 30 minutes. And I was like, yes. And then I did it, and it was life-changing experience. And I was like, wow, what am I doing on trails? I should just go into fire. But yeah, it was definitely thrown at me.
My intro was through an AmeriCorps crew. So met these guys as partners, and then they called me a couple years later with the job. So pretty cool.
Yeah, my interest in fire also started out with AmeriCorps in New York. I did some prescribed burning. I had the opportunity to do that. And then I came out to Montana, worked for MCC as a trail crew leader. And then the next year, COVID hit, and I didn't have any job prospects. So they asked me to come back and be on the women's fire crew. So I came back and did that and got my red card, and just loved it. So I applied for my held tech crew the next year. So.
Awesome. Thank you, folks. The other question we have in the chat is, I'm just going to read the whole thing. It's, I've always been intimidated by the physical requirements for working in fire and having to keep up with the guys. Can you all talk more about your physical training?
I can kick this one off. The physical part of the job is definitely the most intimidating part for me, or it was, because there was always this self-doubt that like, I'm not going to be able to keep up. I'm not hiking fast enough. I can't carry enough weight. But really, in my experience, your soups and your crew just want to see improvement, and they want to see you trying and not giving up and continually working to get better. And I'd say, a really good point was brought up earlier on that you should show up ready. Don't show up not having done any push-ups or sit-ups in the last 6 months. And I definitely say, going from my first season to this being my second or 2.5 seasons or whatever, like Lauren said earlier, like I've been training all winter. And I actually went a little extra crazy, and I'm running a marathon the day before my crew starts. So I've been running my little butt off for the past 5 months. And it also helps when you train at elevation and then you go to somewhere Coeur d'Alene, it's like 3,000 feet lower. So I'm hoping that I'm going to have like an extreme advantage this season coming in. And just, do your best and just keep trying. Yeah.
I'd have to say that it's hard work. So to be in shape will only benefit you. We train, what we say, and I say to my crew is we train, we work out so that we can avoid injury, so that we can increase endurance and for mental health. So remember, it's all encompassing. It's not just, a big part of it is I don't want to embarrass myself, right? If we're all being honest, I don't want to embarrass myself when we're all working on, but what really shows up is if you're trying really hard and you've prepared, and that preparation is hard. It's hard work. And I'll switch it a little bit. I know I've mentioned my age once before, almost 50. And I still as much as I can, but I make it known that I'm okay where I'm at because I'm working to improve myself and where I am. And that's what I expect from them. Wherever they are, I expect them to be challenging themselves and improving day after day. And they have to know where they are at that point. So I'd say just getting ready for the season, you have to really do a little not soul searching, but realize where you are and start slowly. Because if you just go in there hardcore trying to start right off the couch, you're going to hurt yourself, or it's going to hurt for quite a few days, and then you're going to have to start slow anyway. So start slow.
Yeah, and mine's pretty standard, same as everybody else. I go to the gym and lift weights with my partner and try to run or hike or swim. And the hardest part for me is I have really bad carpal tunnel. So some things are really challenging, and my team's just aware of it. And I just have to tell them I'm having a bad day, and everyone helps me succeed, and we all lift each other up. As long as they see that I'm giving my 100%, each day. So.
Trying to come up with
certainly. Go ahead. You go.
I was trying to come up with like a really concise way to put everything, but yeah, I mean, like I bought a weight vest so that I could hike with extra weight. I ended up just putting the sandbags in a backpack because it felt more like a fire pack than like having just 45 pounds straight pressing down on me. And like, I'm not a fast hiker. And so that's like probably my weakest link. But I think like a lot of this job is so much more like, yeah, there are moments where like you're busting your butt, you're moving really fast, but it's more about your endurance, you know, like doing project work in the beginning of the season. And I haven't done much upper body or like ran a saw and like, you know, a couple tanks in and my arms are dead. And I'm like, I don't know if this is safe anymore. You know, by the end of the season, that endurance is there, but I think building that along with your strength is really beneficial. And like, you know, I mean, so much of what we do is hiking. So like, yeah, running's great, you know, it's a good workout. But depending on who you are, running doesn't always translate into the ability to hike up a 60% slope with a pack and a saw. And that was kind of just the case for me. But then too, like Angie said, just with like the mental health aspect of it, you know, working out is good for that too, but also checking in with yourself, because I'm super hard on myself. So if I go into a season and I'm not where everyone else is, I'll get in like a negative loop of like, oh, I'm not good enough. So I just encourage you to check yourself a little bit. You know, if that's where you get, if that's where you are, like find a way to like push yourself and strive to like get at the level that you need to be at. And don't get too like bogged down into that like negative self-talk.
I was, you know, I have like a pre-season with my trail crew. So I was also the only female on my trail crew. So keeping up with all of these guys that are hiking really fast. We also mountain bike our trails with chainsaws. That's how we do our log outs at the beginning of the season. So biking with a saw and a full pack is pretty difficult. And then just being able to use the saw, like getting your forearm strength up, using a Pulaski to dig trail, like getting your shoulders strong. I feel like running is super valuable, but for me, it was like trying to get my upper body where my lower body was. So arm strength was really important for me. And then endurance is totally all that it is. You're not ever, I mean, unless there's an emergency situation, you're not ever running with your pack on. You're just trying to continue. You're just going on. So whatever you can do to allow your body to keep going is how you should figure out your training.
Oh, it's not.
I'd like to add also with training or with work, after, you know, running a chainsaw for quite a few years, I realized, and going to a physical therapist, women compensate in different ways for not having the upper body strength that men do. Most women are physically unable to have the upper body strength that men do. So we are by nature multitaskers, and we will find a way to do that job to our own detriment. I was told a lot of stuff when I was just starting out in fire, and man, I wish I would have listened. But if you only listen to one middle-aged lady telling you something going into fire, you are going to compensate for not having that upper body strength. Make sure that you are doing it in a healthy way. My forearms and my elbows I've never had a major injury, knock on wood, but that is my major injury in my eyes. To the detriment of my own body, overcompensated for not having that upper body strength by using my hand strength to run a chainsaw for 20 years, and now I'm reaping the benefits of that. So if it takes going to a physical therapist or seeing a specialist to make sure that you're moving correctly, lifting weight correctly, and compensating in a healthy manner, it is worth it. It is very much worth it because it'll save you in the long run.
I kind of had a similar experience with that, with regards to the compensating for running a saw. But I discovered it after going to a chiropractor. A certain, like, my shoulders and things were overcompensating for like my mid back muscles to hold up that saw. So it was like pulling my shoulder blade and my ribs kind of up and out. So I really had to strengthen those mid back kind of posture muscles to help keep everything kind of where it needed to be. And that, you made me think of something else, Angie. Just that so much of what we do in fire is very like one-sided. You know, you run a saw one way, and it's going to wear on you in an imbalanced way. And like after getting the personal training cert, you learn all about everyone's imbalances. So just remembering to, like, you know, maybe work out your right side as well as your left and kind of do things to balance out like that imbalance and what you're doing. You know, if you can switch up what side you dig on, that can kind of help with that too. Not always possible, not always comfortable, but it can kind of help even things out.
Thank you all for the insight. We have a couple questions here from the Women's Fuels and Fire Crew members in person. The first one is, a couple people have mentioned challenges. Did you find those challenges to be more physical or mental? And what did you find helpful to overcome them?
I'm sure they were both throughout the years. It's both, but the ones I remember are mental and social challenges. Doing something, attempting something that I wasn't sure I was able to do. Getting your mind wrapped around that you're responsible for people's lives and what that actually means. If something goes wrong, all those mental challenges, like, can I wrap my head around the responsibility of this? Those are the ones that I really remember.
I feel like mine were definitely more mental, but I felt the effects of it physically, which was a kind of a weird experience, or like a weird feeling to have, where, you know, I wasn't the fastest hiker and I got in this negative self loop, and it like literally slowed me down. And it, you know, we were into this hike a couple minutes and I was like, I shouldn't be this tired, but my legs are on fire. So that was a really weird thing. And then just like Angie said, with the social aspects, you know, you're not gonna love everyone you work with. That's the way, you know, that's how it goes in any job. You know, like I'm a server right now and there's people at the restaurant that don't like each other. Something that I took from my MCC season that was so valuable is the ability to give and receive feedback to superiors and to people on my level. And that was so crucial in my season last year. I was the only new seasonal on a type 1 crew. So I was like fresh for picking on, you know, for whatever wasn't like where it needed to be. And I had one person who I just felt like, you know, to be blunt, that I was like taking a lot of shit from. And talked to the boss, you know, talked to our captain about it. And then she and I had more than one discussion and kind of like figured each other out. And then I loved working with her by the end of the season. But that's something as people that we're not always taught, is to have those uncomfortable conversations, but it can be so beneficial in making you feel a part of your crew. You know, if you're like the one new person or you feel left out, like having a little bit of a tough conversation can help kind of give you that sense of community a little bit, or feel like, oh, okay, you know, they do want me here. I am a part of this. Yeah.
Meg, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think most of my challenges last year were pretty physical. I did not come into the season well prepared, and so this off season, I definitely put a lot of energy into preparing physically so that I could start off the season on the right foot. And that also translates to a mental thing, kind of like what Shelby was saying. Like, if I feel confident physically, then that's not going to take so much of a toll on me mentally. So yeah.
I would say adversely, it was mostly mental, and I felt very physically fit. And I was carrying, at least on this last roll, I was carrying almost a 20-pound saw on one side of me the whole while. It was the little comments like, you know, I had my hair really short. So if I ever took my helmet off and someone noticed that I was a female, some comment was most definitely made about, oh, I can't believe a girl is a lead Sawyer. And it's all about what your attitude with those situations and what you're going to do with that information, because those are going to come, and just let it fuel your fire and work harder and put your head down, and your crew should have your back.
So the other question I had from the group is, have you ever had an experience where you felt really scared, and how did you deal with that fear?
On this most recent role, I was asked to put a tree down that was going to compromise the line, and the tree was beginning to torch, and I started to drop the tree. The muffler was creating more heat, making me feel really uncomfortable, to the point where I had to put my saw down and step away, and I had to ask for help, which is really hard to do when you're trying to prove yourself and prove your worth. But checking yourself and making sure that you're safe is number one.
I will add to that. Last season, my crew was unfortunately present when an aircraft crashed right next to our helicopter, and we were some of the first people on the ground to respond. And that was a really difficult situation to process. And the next day I had to fly again, and I had a panic attack, like in the helicopter, which I was not expecting to happen at all. I think that the whole experience put me into shock. And so that was a weird thing to try and deal with and get over. And I'll just say that, like, my agency and my overhead were so supportive and receptive to, you know, anything that our crew needed or wanted, like providing like resources for people to speak with. And so, yeah, that was a pretty intense and scary situation. And yeah, I think I was able to get through it with the support of my overhead and the other crew members, and just like openly talking about it, and kind of moving through that trauma. And yeah, so.
I've certainly been, I don't know if the question used afraid or scared at different times. Our work environment is very dynamic. So if you're aware, there are dangerous things around you. Certain instances do jump out at me. I don't think I had the tools to deal with them at that time. So I just mentally powered through and tried not to think about it, which it's probably not the best way to go about it. Looking back on it, I think I'm a lot more, you know, just with experience and age, you know, I think all of us year after year are more capable to deal with things and address things. But most of the physical dangers, they're present. It's being mindful and aware and speaking out and making dangers aware, whether it's snags or driving conditions or anything like that. The being afraid of other things, you know, being the only female in an ops tent debrief at the end of a really, really shitty day on the fire line, and speaking out and saying, this is what needs to happen tomorrow. That's a different kind of fear. And those two situations are dealt with completely differently. That's a tough one. You either face something head on or you ignore it, and it's never going to go away if you ignore it.
I had a couple like little instances that, well, you know, nothing ended poorly. But one where my first experience in fire would have been my engine season in Coeur d'Alene, where I was like, you know, like the hairs in the back of your neck kind of stand up a little bit. We were on night shift in California, and we just kept hearing like massive trees coming down. And we were patrolling up and down this road, and then we like at one point a tree had come across the road. So that was like, I was like, woo, should we be doing this? That was like the first kind of fear moment. And then I think after that, after we got down, came back up, they didn't have us go down that road anymore for that reason. And then there was one other one that we were doing an initial attack out of McCall last year, and I was on the SAW team, and it was just us kind of getting up towards the top of the head of the fire. And there was a lot of trees torching, and it was like really thick smoke. And my SAW partner, like I kind of went and scoped it out, and then I came back, and you know, he's like, oh, what do you think? And I was like, well, it's really thick smoke, but I was just like, I don't know, man, like I don't feel comfortable going up there. And so we both agreed that it wasn't a good idea, and pulled back out, and the helicopters came in and dropped buckets up there and cooled it off, and we were able to keep going. But I definitely have that communication of just like, hey, I don't feel comfortable with this. And he was like, okay, cool. Yeah. Like, let's get out of here and find a different way to do it. Communicating that fear is valid. I would hope that no one makes you feel stupid for asking a question or expressing a fear. Yeah.
Awesome. I think that was the last question we had. Excuse me. I think that was the last question we had. So I just wanted to go ahead and thank all of you for being here and sharing your insight and experience with our Women's Fuels and Fire crews this season, and anyone else watching. I know all your insight and experience is invaluable, and so is your time. So I really, really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be here today.
It was really nice to meet everybody and to hear people's stories. I love how varied everybody's career path is and what you're doing now and what you do in your off time. And I think these conversations are really valuable. And if anybody wants to do it again, I'm available. You can always call me. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, I think this has been a super cool way to like kick off fire season, is to like be, you know, in a chat with all these really rad ladies that have a lot of awesome experience. And thanks so much for having me be a part of it.
Yeah, thanks ladies, and thanks Kaylin for organizing this.
Awesome. I'm gonna stop the recording, and yeah, thank you everyone for being here. Have a good evening.
Have a good season, everyone.
Bye.